Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I'm very privileged to have my friend, my colleague, my client, Siaka Massaquoi, on with me today. Of course, most of you have probably already read, because our followers keep up with the news, the real news, not the fake news, that Siaka was recently arrested at Burbank Airport, surrounded by four jackbooted FBI agents, to put the term loosely, most diplomatically, as well as airport police, after 3 years after the point that he had his house raided in Los Angeles by 20 FBI agents. He was denied the right of talking to counsel. His property was confiscated, and apparently he was only charged. In fact, I know he was only charged with 4 misdemeanors, basically for trespass. Why did they do it at this time? We're going to talk about it with Siaka, because it fits in with the political landscape in this country today, which is all about election interference. It's all about defeating Donald Trump. It's all about continuing the leftist dictatorship under Joe Biden or someone else who may step in on his behalf, since I don't think the guy's going to make it. Neither does Trump to 2024 to run for presidency. He'll probably pass away, or the Democrats will give him something in his sleep and he won't wake up. That's my assessment. In any event, I want to talk about something else, because it's about the Republicans. And the Republican Party, in terms of what it sells to the American people. And that's not Siaka. He happens to be vice chairman of the Republican Party in Los Angeles County. They're actually trying to do something, and they're sincere. But on the national level, the Republican Party, frankly, is a fraud, in my opinion. I always said that I thought Trump should run as an independent. He would win as an independent, not be tied down by the Republican Party in general. But you've got Elise Stefanik, who is trying to do some good things. You know, the congressman, she obviously took on Harvard and MIT and the University of Pennsylvania with regard to anti-Semitism and discrimination on college campuses. She's also been filing a number of complaints against federal judges. And while that's mostly for her fundraising, because she knows those complaints will go nowhere, they do make a point, and I commend her for doing it. But the last one that she filed, and this was just yesterday, was against a judge that I have been up against many, many times. Her name is Burl Howe. She was the chief judge of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. I actually encountered her in a case I brought for Sheriff Joe Arpaio, seeking to invalidate the 5 million illegal aliens that President Barack Obama gave amnesty to. And she dismissed that case, said, oh, it's just political, it's not legal. Well, a similar case was filed in Texas, and that went all the way to the Supreme Court, and I participated in that for Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and we won. The Supreme Court invalidated, after the Fifth Circuit made a similar ruling, which was upheld, this illegal amnesty that Biden had, Freudian slip, that Obama had put into effect. Of course, Biden was the vice president at the time. Well, fast forward. Burl Howe, for most of the last several years, sat as the chief judge of the same court, of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. And recently, she made a remark. She is still, I believe, the chief judge. And I write about her in my book, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America. She got on the bench because she was recommended by Senator Patrick Leahy, far-left individual. She worked for him as a staff counsel. But a recent statement that she made publicly while giving a speech, and I quote, "My DC colleagues and I regularly see the impact of big lies at the sentencing of hundreds of individuals who have been convicted for offense conduct on January 6, 2021, when they disrupted the certification of the 2020 presidential election at the U.S. Capitol. As district court judges, we are all about the facts." Well, she accused all January 6 peaceful protesters, in effect, such as Siaka, of lying. And this is highly prejudicial coming from a chief judge of that court. And it tells you the mentality of what is going on in that court and other courts with regard to January 6th. Now, January 6th is very important. It was not an insurrection. Yes, it was a protest. It was an uprising. It was long overdue after decades of corruption in government. And the people saw, with the way that Trump was treated, not just by states and their legislatures, but also, frankly, by the Supreme Court, which would not, in fact, even hear cases about the allegations of election irregularities and fraud, is that the American people had had it. And they rose up, and the overwhelming majority were peaceful, such as Siaka. Siaka was curious. He was at the JW Marriott down the street. He saw what was going on in TV, and he just went over, and he went over to the Capitol, and I'll let him put it in his own words. And for 71 seconds, he was just, frankly, at the doorstep, and the Capitol Police asked him to leave, and he left peacefully. By the way, that's our Capitol. That was not a trespass. He never saw a sign, "Do not enter." Yet he is charged with 4 misdemeanors 3 years later. And why is he charged with that, in my opinion? And of course, Freedom Watch is defending him in that case. And frankly, we can use contributions to do that because it's going to be very, very expensive. You can go to freedomwatchusa.org, and I'll let Siaka also give his legal defense website when he comes on. But they're doing it because Siaka is a influential and highly personable and articulate Black actor and comedian from Hollywood. He has the capability of influencing not just white votes, but Black votes. And we know that Blacks are breaking in greater numbers towards President Trump. They see how Biden has basically let them hang out to dry with rampant crime in inner cities, with an economy where they can't afford food, where they can't afford gasoline. And they're saying to themselves, I'm no longer going to vote Democrat. I'm going to vote for someone who's actually going to help me and my family. So I believe that what happened is that given that we're going into this presidential election, that they did not want Siaka to speak. They wanted to silence him. They want to throw him in jail, and they want to discredit him and people like him. And that's what that is about. Now, Freedom Watch does not take a position in elections as a public interest group. Larry Klayman can personally, but we don't do it as a group. But we are defending Siaka Massaquoi because it's the right thing to do. Because today it's Siaka. Tomorrow it's you and your loved ones that are going to be subject to this kind of treatment. And we know, of course, that illegal surveillance occurred to the January 6th protesters. So in addition to defending Siaka in his criminal prosecution, we also have a class action lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Florida for him and others, because the government has been forced to admit, it was disclosed, that they were conducting illegal surveillance under Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And that can knock out the prosecutions of any and all of the January 6th peaceful protesters, as well as the convictions if we're successful. So this very high stakes litigation is crucial to trying to preserve the liberty, our First Amendment rights, to protest, to take action, which is peaceful, as Siaka did, to try to influence our government. And I don't think anybody with any degree of common sense, with an IQ over 60, believes that this election in 2020 was fair and honest. It was corrupt. And frankly, going into election 2024, you can expect the Democrats to do the same thing again. So the election of Donald Trump or anybody else is, far less certain than it would otherwise be. And the powers to be, whether it's Burl Howe in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, whether it's the Supreme Court, they just go with the flow. They're part of the establishment. And then ask yourself this question. The complaint that Burl Howe filed was with the Judicial Council, which I have filed many there. That is comprised of other judges in the same courthouse as Burl Howe. And it will be thrown into the trash 100%. I've never got them to do anything, regardless of what any judge did. But then ask yourself this other question. This clown, Jim Jordan, who runs the Judiciary Committee, who prances around with rolled up sleeves, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now we've got an impeachment inquiry, which is basically just to wound Biden. They're not going to impeach him. The Republicans don't want to get him out. They want him to be weak when they go into the 2024 elections if he survives that long. Jim Jordan is the head of the Judiciary Committee in the House. Why isn't he hauling Burl Howe's rear end in front of that committee? Why isn't he starting to impeach judges who have violated their oath of office with regard to J-6 and many other things in this country? He hasn't lifted a hand with regard to one judge in this country. The guy is a total clown and he's a fraud. But this is the problem because people out there believe that the Republicans are doing something, and they're not on the national level. Siaka is in LA, but not at the national level. And this is causing people to give them more and more money so they can try to retain power. In fact, it's very unlikely that they will retain power either in the House of Representatives or the Senate. Perhaps a Republican might win the presidency, but he or she will have his hands tied or her hands tied because they won't have the ability to move anything through Congress. But the reality is that as head of the Judiciary Committee, if Jordan wanted to do something for the January 6th protesters, he'd be hauling the derrieres of these judges in front of his committee and implementing impeachment proceedings. But no, they won't impeach the judges, and they won't even impeach Trump, mark my words. Now, stay tuned. We're going to bring Siaka Massaquoi on. Some of my political and ideological views he may not agree with. That's fine. I don't ask anybody to agree with what I'm saying. But this is Larry Klayman from the heart. If you don't support people like Siaka and Freedom Watch, then this country is going down the drain because the political establishment in Washington, D.C., judicial or legislative or in the executive branch, protects itself at the expense of the American people. I'll be right back. Stay tuned. We're going to have Siaka Massaquoi on, and he's going to discuss his persecution by the Gestapo of a Biden Justice Department. We'll be right back. I'm back with Siaka Massaquoi, my friend and client, someone who I believe in. We have other lawyers also working on the case who believe in him as well. And I want to introduce you again to him. He's been on our show many times. But Siaka, bring us up to the present as to what's happened to you over the last 3 years and what you're up against.
Well, first off, as always, thank you for having me on, Larry. It's been a wild ride. I'm happy to have someone like you along for the ride because it's been bumpy. Starting initially almost 2+ years ago now. There's going to be 3. But like you mentioned earlier, I went to DC on January 6th. I went for the speech. I didn't go for the Capitol. And I've said this multiple times now. I even going from the speech to the hotel, going to the Capitol is only because of what I saw on the news and believing they were lying about how they were portraying, as Trump supporters. And as you said, I went there curiously. It was completely fine where I was walking around. That's what I saw. Now, apparently, and we'll get this information when we go through the lawsuit or go through court. But my timeline was an hour plus after everything even happened. All the major issues that they kept playing over and over on the news. I had no idea. So I went there out of curiosity. As you said, and now I'm recording what I'm experiencing. I step into the infamous archway that were on multiple videos of people getting into fights and all this stuff. But I step in there with many other people and on my video, you hear someone say, "This is where they're letting us in." So we're shuffling in slowly. We get stopped about four to five steps in the doorway. So we're not allowed to go further because the police were standing right there. So in this situation, under my understanding, we're following the protocols that are, being doled out at this moment because, yeah, it was a different moment than any other regular day at the Capitol. So it seemed like they were saying, well, you can come into about here and that's it. I'm recording this entire thing. A individual in a riot gear comes up and he tells us we have to go back the other way. I use it with my phone still out there. I'm recording everything saying, yes, sir, we will. But you see, we're being reasonable. I'm smiling. I'm not thinking anything of it. Not thinking that it's, this is a dangerous situation because they're not moving as if it's a dangerous situation. Then so I turn around and you can hear on another video that's out that I posted on X that, someone's saying this guy's been helping us get people out. So that's pretty much his inferences. This guy's been helping us, meaning I'm helping trying to get people moving back out based on the direction given to me by the only law enforcement that spoke any type of direction to us at the time. So I walked outside. I recorded a little more by window, actually had a decent little exchange with another police officer, checking in on him because I said everything they did to him, like that somebody had hit him in the head with a canister of pepper spray, and I said, "Are you okay? That wasn't cool." Showing concern for him because it wasn't about that. Walked around a little bit, took some pictures, and left. So all in all, I was probably there for maybe 30 minutes of just walking around, and then I went back to my hotel. So and then after that, we know that then that June I get raided by the FBI at 5:45 in the morning. Get 15 plus agents, guns drawn, ARs drawn, as if I'm some drug trafficker or weapons dealer. Had my godsons in the house, 6 and 3 and 6. Best friend had another set of roommates there. So everyone, guns pointed in their faces, as if they're the hardened criminals. Um, Over the last 2 years, I've been dealing with extra scrutiny of security. Well, as they raided my house, they took my computer and my cell phone, flash drives, even my MAGA hats. They never said I was never arrested or charged, and they only gave me one sheet of paper for a warrant, and they never allowed me, as you mentioned earlier, to talk to a lawyer because, from the agent's own words, well, this is not an arrest. You don't need it. This is not an arrest. Um, then for the last 2 years in the airports, every time I travel, I've been harassed at the airport. I can't check in the day before. I have to go to the desk and do 45-minute check-in. TSA, I get full body searched and get my stuff searched. And then I have to do that same search again at the gate after TSA. So that's some of the stuff's been going on that led into, November 30th, being arrested at the airport, Burbank Airport tarmac by 4 agents and 4 airport police. So, and that's where we sit now.
Siaka, we're going to continue this story. I just say quick is that you hadn't been charged with anything up until recently, and in fact, you were
Right.
arrested at airports. I mean, that is outrageous and
Right.
institutional. We'll be right back with Siaka Massaquoi. Siaka, continue your story. And what I said before the break is that what right did the U.S. government have to harass you at airports when you had not been charged with anything? I mean, this is pure harassment. And, when they do things like that to you, they're doing it to others as well. It's to keep you quiet,
Yes.
shut you up, is that you're not allowed to speak. And that's why we do live in a dictatorship controlled by Biden and his leftist hack friends. But anyway, continue with your story.
Well, so I mean, to that point of like that's the big issue that we're fighting right now is what right based on what 71 seconds that and 4 to 5 steps into the Capitol is what I did and turned around when given direct order to do so. So basically, to me, it looks like political persecution because I do have not a super huge platform, but a platform nonetheless. I have been vocal out here in Los Angeles. I've been in the Hollywood industry for 15 plus years, so people tend to listen a little more to what you have to say about the things that go on here. And we know that now for these 2 years, when having my phone and my laptop, they have been tracking, listening, collecting data on me and whoever else I've ever come in contact with for 2 years. And what's the purpose to come back with misdemeanors? To me, it's more than just me, and it's an operation that seems to be going on with so many Americans. Like my story can be heard because of my platform, but my story isn't the first or second or even third. I'm just one of thousands that have been tracked, that have been, have their information data stored for the U.S. government, been put on lists, been harassed at the airport. And I would argue how different is it from kind of what China started with their social credit scores. That if you aren't loyal to the state, then you can't travel comfortably. Sometimes people there can't travel at all if they're seen as too much of a dissident. That you can't have your articles printed out, that you don't have access to internet, that you have limited time with your phone. That's what's going on in China now. And we've seen here that anyone that speaks against the election, anyone that speaks against this administration, whether it's locally or you have a national scale, someone on that side will come after you to destroy your life. And now, when they arrested me on November 30th, it starts the process. As I spoke to one of a FBI whistleblower, Steve Friend, it starts a process. He said the punishment is in the process. And so for the first time in American history, we're seeing the FBI go after misdemeanors, not because it's actually the most important crime to get, but it's something else that's going on. It's to punish you for even believing what you believe, punishing you for your First Amendment rights. So now we have to go through this process of first being locked up, torn away from my wife, spent a night in jail. Thank God Larry was able to come in town like red eye last minute and help out with finding Laura Sally Chin to help out here in Los Angeles so that I could be released and go back home to my wife that night instead of spending a weekend in jail, which is part of the punishment of the process. Then you have, the case has been moved to DC right now. So we will have to fly out to DC eventually and then go back and forth and deal with that process, which is the punishment. Then the finances that it will take. And look, I've been canceled from Hollywood because of my political views. So for the last 3 years, I've been doing sketches and I just fortunate enough in the first movie I've ever done, and first movie I did recently in 3 years because of this. So my career income has been increasingly devastated based on me just expressing my freedom of choice. So now they're bringing these cases up on people, and thank God for this platform and having so much love and support. But not everyone's able to raise the type of money we just been able to raise. So how many other people have been buried in debt, refinanced their home just to fight off the government off misdemeanors, to then
Well,
get possibly locked up and fined. It's disgusting.
Sally Chen, by the way, is the lawyer for Siaka in Los Angeles, local counsel. She came in. She did a very good job. I was there
Yes.
observing and putting in my 2 cents. And, there was a initial appearance. The government, he wanted standard pretrial release terms, which included taking away Siaka's right of self-defense, his firearms. Sally was able to convince the magistrate judge, who seemed like a fair person, a woman there,
Yes.
that he should be able to keep it, that LA is an extremely dangerous city in particular. He's under the pretrial release. He's been banned from traveling to DC unless it's a question of going to defend himself in his case. He has to report constantly to a pretrial release officer. They took
Yep.
away his passport so he can't travel in terms of if he wants to do anything
Nationally.
in his professional capacity or travel for pleasure overseas. He's no threat to anyone. 71 seconds in the Capitol. He put his foot in and tested the water, and they told him it was time to leave. And he said, "Okay,
Yeah.
I'll leave."
Okay.
And
Like I'm not a crazy person, and I've always said this, like there were times when I was a hopeless drunk, I was godless, and there are things that I got in trouble for that I went to jail for. And there are things that I didn't get in trouble for that I should have gone to jail for. And thank God for God because he saved my life from a hopeless disease and he helped me turn my life back into a positive direction. And I find it fascinating that after that turn, that, and it says this in the Bible, God said that the servant isn't greater than the master. They persecute me, they'll persecute you in my name. And it's crazy that as I've gotten closer to Jesus, I'm seeing the weight of, as they say, these principalities of the government start to come down on Christians, on individuals like myself. And it's while it can suck and it can be frustrating when you are in the word and you have an idea of what the word says, it's not surprising. So at the same time, that is not surprising that you'll be persecuted. The Lord's promise is in there as well. And with his promise, he's saying, endure, because his gifts are true. And I mean, even that night of being locked up, falling asleep with a Bible in my hand that was given to me by one of the guards. Larry coming in when he did at 10:30 just to do the early conference with your client that I didn't expect to happen. To talking to other there were other prisoners there that were in their jumpsuits not getting out of jail, and we're talking God there, and they're asking me to pray for them. To all the people that came to support just for my bond hearing on the first. 15 plus people, half of them from the church. One of them was the pastor that married Charlotte and myself. And to see his gifts work all the way till the end, till I was released and back in her arms and more, of course. It's been breathtaking. it tells me and would have me implore everyone that's watching, trust in the Lord. I know it can be tough, and I know they have a lot of resources here on the earth, but like Jesus says, make sure he's like, what good is to fear somebody who can just harm your body? Fear the one that can harm your body and your soul, and that's the Lord. And the fear in him is the beginning of wisdom in man.
That's a beautiful story, and your testimony is tremendous, Siaka. I've had similar experience. I mean, I haven't, thank God, been arrested or charged with a crime or whatever the
It's
case may
not
be.
fun.
Gone through very difficult periods of my life, and I remember, I was dealing with Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch, who's tried to destroy me now for 20 years. Because he felt competition from me after I left to run for the Senate. I've been dealing with a crazy ex-wife for a period of time in Cleveland, Ohio, who made false charges against me at the time. I'm giving you my testimony. And the low point in my life, okay, when I had to deal with these judges, Jesus came to me. I almost killed myself on the 405.
Mm,
I was out there at the time, and I'm driving down Ventura Boulevard, and I'm saying, Larry, you're not like Jesus. You're a revolutionary, but you're not like Jesus. He paid the price. And all of a sudden, he comes to me with thought, and he says, Larry, clear your head out. I'm with you now. You will pay a price, but believe me, I'm with you. And the Lord is clearly with you, Siaka.
mm,
Okay, clear. And
mm,
and
mm, mm,
and,
mm.
and he came to me one other time, Jesus, in thought. And if people open up their heart and open up their mind to Jesus, then this is exactly what you can expect is that he will come to you. He will help you. He helped our founding fathers. Divine
Oh yeah.
all odds. We waged a revolution after the king declared war on us, and we won. And now the country's at the point of near destruction, and it's at the point of near destruction as just one example of what's happening to Siaka. We're not allowed to peacefully protest. We're not allowed to give our opinion. We're not even allowed to vote in fair elections because, and you can
Right.
bet 2024 election is going to be rigged as well. Say it.
Well,
The
you
establishment,
know what's
you know, closes the wagons, Democrat and Republican, or Fox News, who won't talk about J-6 anymore because they've been hit with lawsuits, and from the left. Anyway, go ahead, Siaka. But this is what
well,
Siaka's
and but you're right about what we're up against, and it takes me back to the Old Testament, um, and in First and Second Kings, and how the people of Israel the kings of Israel would turn their backs to the Lord, and Israel would go through so much trouble and tribulation. And it's the same thing here. I remember when they passed the law to remove the Ten Commandments from the Georgia State House, which was a ripple effect that, we're feeling today. And so as we as a country have turned our back against the Lord talks about it. He talks about it in I think I want to say it's Deuteronomy. It's like, look, if you keep turning away from me, it will come down sevenfold. It will continue to get worse and worse. And we're in a place now that the great deception is happening. They're telling 5-year-olds they can be a different sex than what they are. And then by 12, they've set up laws so that they can lie to the parents without any type of recourse, that the state will lie to the parents, and the state will help fund their dysmorphia, will help mutilate them. This is no different than what was going on with the worshippers of Baal when they were just burning babies for their god and having this unfeathered fornication with each other and calling it what we call it now, free love. So we're doing the same things that people who want to disobey the Lord does, and we see there is a just response to that. And unfortunately, we're in it. But fortunately, we're in it because then we get to express the glory of the Lord. And I'll finish with this. There's that story Paul has about the walls coming down when he was praying, worshiping the Lord in jail. Larry is praying to the Lord over and over that night I was in jail, over and over that day. But when you came in, when you left, I fell on my knees and I started singing the Brandon Lake song "Gratitude." To be in the courtroom, even all the way to the end where we had to like pull back the DA from leaving so we can get the signature signed properly. it makes sense now how the walls came down for Paul, because I saw the walls come down for me. And
Yeah,
the thing I could do the most was just to glorify the Lord, because I had no idea what the outcome was.
yeah, and that I always say that at the end of my podcast, and I will say it at the end of this show. And please stay for the verdict section because we can give the verdict here. I always say the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves, and that's really true. We can't be sitting there watching Fox News or even reading Larry Klayman's books or watching your video and say that's enough.
Mhm.
Entertain.
No.
We have to rise up, and I hope people will rise up and help Siaka because he's at the cutting edge. He's at the forefront. We're at the fight, and he's not afraid. He's not going to get down on his knees with a forced confession like this was Iran and said that he did something wrong when he didn't, as a lot of these J-6 protesters have been convinced to do by their sellout lawyers. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman and Siaka Massaquoi, my esteemed client and guest for this show. We're back with the verdict, fellow patriots, people who believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers, people of faith like Siaka. Yes, the Father and Son are behind us, and they will come to you, and they will talk to you if you open your heart and your mind. And that's very important because of all the stuff that Siaka talked about, that is what keeps you firm. It keeps you sane in this very, very tumultuous world where everybody's trying to kill each other, literally and physically. And Siaka is a perfect example of that. So I hope that you will go to freedomwatchusa.org and contribute with tax-deductible contributions. This is going to be expensive. He's not just fighting for you. He's fighting for himself. And Siaka also has a legal defense fund, and he'll give you the coordinates for that. It's all going to his defense, one way or the other. And Freedom Watch is defending him in this matter and bringing the lawsuit in the Northern District of Florida for him and others with regard to the illegal surveillance that could knock potentially everything out for every J-6 peaceful protester. This is what we're up against. And make no mistake about it, it is not a sure thing that Donald Trump's going to win the next election. They're doing whatever they can to destroy him. And we need to stand up for ourselves. And as I said in the monologue to this case, to this show today, you got to ask yourself the question, why isn't Jim Jordan, head of the Judiciary Committee, doing something about the injustices that are occurring in our legal system? He has the power to at least hold hearings, to haul these people in front of his committee and make them account. He has the power to vote in the Judiciary Committee certain impeachment proceedings against these federal judges in particular. But they're not doing that because the Republican Party on the national level wants this outrage to continue because they think that will get them power in 2024. So they only create the appearance of doing something, but they have the ability to do much more, and they don't. And while I commend Elise Stefanik, I get emails from her, every 5 minutes. It's just unbelievable, to raise money. I mean, she is at least out there talking about the outrages and the wrongs. But will she be successful? No, because she doesn't have anybody to back her up in the Republican establishment, the rhinos in Congress, or for that matter, anywhere else. And even the federal judges that sit on the bench in Washington, D.C., even judges who I once had respect for, like Royce Lambert, appointed by Reagan, they've gone south. They're part of the establishment now, and they will protect those who are doing the tyranny against the American people. Lambert, and I'll turn the rest over to Siaka, said at a sentencing of one of the peaceful protesters, George Washington said, "You must obey the established government." I almost fell over laughing when I read that. It was tragic. Did George Washington obey the established government? King George III? So let Siaka finish this off. We've got a couple minutes here. Tell people where they can reach you, how they can contribute to you, how they can support you, and what they can be doing other than just watching Fox News to try to change things in this country.
Well, that's a big point you made. If whatever your skill set is, it is important for this fight. If you are a music teacher, if you are someone who just organizes, or if you're someone who likes to scream in a microphone, it doesn't matter. Your skill set is needed here for this fight here to help save our nation. And I want to point out how important it is to support Freedom Watch, not just for my case, for my defense, but we're also, Larry, we helped me do a complaint against the FBI. We had a lawsuit going for 2 years, and I do believe that if that lawsuit didn't happen, that I probably would have been picked up sooner. And so then this allows us, that 2 years that we had allowed us to show how dysfunctional and how abusive that the FBI has been to people because they've been watching me for 2 years. I believe personally that because of that lawsuit, they didn't move until after. But then we did file another one about their illegal spying. So this is not, when you support Freedom Watch, it's not just about my case. It's about the fight against this corruption in different levels, not just a defense of the corruption coming against individuals. So I, ask you guys to support the Freedom Watch for the overall work they're doing. If you feel inclined to support me, I have a givesendgo.com/Siaka, Siaka. You can check out over there. That's, we're getting a lot of support. We love it right now. We thank you guys for that. And you can also follow me at Siaka Massaquoi on Instagram as well. So I thank you guys for all your support and supporting myself in this fight, and definitely support organization like Freedom Watch and everything that they are standing for.
Well, thank you, Siaka. You are a true American hero and my good friend. I'm very proud to be associated with you. You'll be back again. Stay tuned. Follow Siaka's case at freedomwatchusa.org. And please play a role in having this good person acquit himself. He's not going to roll over. He's not going to make forced confessions as if this were Ron. He will fight it out to the very end. And with the grace of the Father and Son, he will win, and you will win as a result. We'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Remember, the Father and Son will only help us if we help ourselves. Thank you for listening to us.